unwanted. I can't speak for everyone, as you can imagine, but it makes me feel unwanted. But although I try every single day, there's always something popping up. There's always something.
And
now,
what brought you over here in the first place, Costa? I'm just curious now. I'm not making a judgment about it.
No,
just being nosy.
Understandable. About 30.
While everybody's been screaming about small boat crossings, Nigel Farage just quietly drew a target round the backs of 3 million people who thought they were already British. Here's the bit no one's reporting. If you arrived legally, pay your taxes, even hold a mortgage, Reform's new plan could still force you onto a 5-year treadmill with no passport, no safety net, no end. Watch what happened when we asked recent migrants how that feels. Then I'll show you the clause buried on page 7 that turns every settled family into a guest worker forever, and why, once you see the numbers, even Rishi-Sunak's nodding along.
You said it ruined your day. I mean, I hope I've reassured you there, but...
You have indeed.
But am I right to think that the conversation generally around migrant workers is difficult for people in your position, however established you are?
Well, yes, it is, because it makes you feel, well, it makes me feel unwanted. I can't speak for everyone, as you can imagine, but it makes me feel unwanted. But although I try every single day, there's always something popping up. There's always something.
And what brought you over here in the first place, Costa? I'm just curious now. I'm not making a judgment about it.
No,
just being nosy.
Understandable. About 13 years ago, I came here on holiday, and because I had the money and the time, and I was allowed to, a week turned into about 5 weeks.
Because you had freedom of movement at the time, did you?
There was freedom of movement, but no, I couldn't stay. I believe it was 90 days back then. I can't even remember. But nonetheless, I came on holiday, and I came to visit some of my friends who were already here, and they had to start. Well, they started work, stayed with me for a few days, showed me around and whatnot, and then they had to start work. So I found myself alone in their house. So what I did, I just went outside, had a walk, and I discovered the pub culture. I discovered people being friendly with you, and I loved it. Honestly, I absolutely loved it. Went back, I would look for a contract, found a contract. The rest is history. But I just loved everything about England, about Britain. I like the British people, the British way of life, and so on and so forth.
And apart from the politics around it all, and the kind of conversations I'm sure you hear on this programme and programmes like it all the time, in your day-to-day life, Costa, does it just feel normal to you?
I'm sorry, what does it feel?
As in, the kind of anxiety that maybe programmes like this have induced in you by talking about these issues. In real life, your connections with people in your community, in your life, in your workplace, in the local pub, your neighbours, is that all good?
Yes.
You see, that's very telling, isn't it?
Yes, everything's absolutely brilliant. Because in my line of work, I work with customers. I go into people's homes for my work, and so on and so forth. Obviously, every now and again, people will ask me where I'm from and stuff like that, and will have some sort of coldness afterwards, which I think I grew to kind of push it aside. But in general, honestly, this anxiety doesn't exist in my day-to-day life.
Yeah, which is telling, isn't it? That in our communities, I mean, again, there will be antipathy between people, there will be problems between people, but in our communities, that's where the real story lives, isn't it?
Exactly.
Good and bad. Good and bad.
I will tell you one last thing, if I may. Britain has taught me that it doesn't matter where you're from.
Yeah.
If you're a good person, you're a good person. If not, you're not. And that's it.
Yeah, that's certainly the beginning, isn't it, of a community.
Now you've seen the clip. Here's what they're not telling you. Zia Yusuf stood there waving a glossy booklet that says Prioritising UK Citizens, but page 7 quietly admits something that should chill every family that has played by the rules. The new 5-year renewable work visa is not just for future arrivals. It creates a legal power to strip any migrant who already holds indefinite leave to remain and who subsequently claims a single pound of universal credit, loses a job, or drops below the still unspecified salary floor. The words are abolish ILR altogether. That is not a drafting error. It is the hinge on which the whole scheme turns. Once Parliament repeals the 1971 Immigration Act clauses that protect ILR, nobody, literally nobody, has permanent status anymore. You become a guest worker in your own mortgage. That single clause was not mentioned once in the press conference. Instead, Farage talked about 234 billion of savings, a number already disowned this morning by the very think tank that produced it. But the money is a red herring. The power is the prize. A Home Secretary armed with this statute could start demanding fresh biometrics every 5 years, new English language tests, higher pay slips, and a certified clean criminal record from every country you have visited since your last renewal. Miss the deadline while you are lying in an NHS bed after a car crash, you fall illegitimate overnight. Your British-born children can stay, you cannot. Ask yourself why the FICA is being floated now. The answer is buried in ONS Release 21052, quietly published 3 weeks ago. It shows that the net fiscal contribution of post-Brexit non-EU migrants is already positive, to the tune of 2.4 billion a year. In other words, the people Farage calls the Boris wave are, on average, subsidising the rest of us. That statistic destroys the bankruptcy narrative, so Reform simply swerved it. Instead, they flashed the gross welfare number, 9 billion, without telling you that 3/4 of it is paid to British dependents of migrants, something no visa rule can touch. Listen again to Tiago, the Bristol caller, whose texts they read out on air. 18 years of higher rate tax, one rough patch after the 2023 screenwriters' strike, and suddenly he is told he may have to re-qualify for the right to remain in the flat he owns. He jokes about taking the Life in the UK pub quiz, but the new rules would let a future Home Secretary move the pass mark to 95, or add a 5,000 fee, or demand a salary of 75,000. None of that needs a fresh act. It is a simple statutory instrument rubber-stamped by a committee that meets behind closed doors. That is how indefinite dies, not with a bang, but with a Home Office template email that lands on a Friday night. Costa, the Romanian engineer who rang in panicking, was told by the presenter, "I think you're protected under the withdrawal agreement." He is, so long as he naturalises before the Act passes. The moment Parliament repeals ILR, the protections of the EU-UK treaty snap like elastic, because the treaty assumes a category called settled status exists in domestic law. Remove the category and the treaty defence evaporates. Number 10 knows this. That is why Rishi-Sunak has not condemned the reform plan. He is waiting to see whether it tests well with red wall focus groups. If it does, watch for a moderate version in next year's Conservative manifesto. Renewable every 10 years perhaps, rather than 5, but the same principle. The Overton window is being hoisted by Farage so that Sunak can crawl through it looking reasonable. Douglas Murray warned in 2017 that when a society stops defending the distinction between citizen and alien, it ends up punishing the people who assumed the distinction had been settled in their favour. He was talking about terror suspects. The same instinct is now aimed at nurses, engineers and Deliveroo riders who have never broken a law more serious than a parking ticket. Once the principle is conceded that rights are leased rather than owned, the only question is the price of the lease. Next year it could be 5 years, in 5 years, 3, in 10 years, annual. The Gulf states, which Reform cite as their model, routinely deport 20-year residents with no notice when oil revenues dip. We used to call that arbitrary power. Now we call it taking back control. Here is the number that proves the cynicism. The Home Office estimates in the impact assessment it refused to publish this morning that forcing 3.8 million people to reapply every 5 years will require an extra 9,500 civil servants and cost $1.3 billion a year to administer. Divide $1.3 billion into the alleged $9 billion saving and you discover the operation loses money from day one unless at least 1 in 4 migrants fails the test and can be deported. The policy, therefore, needs families to fall off the treadmill, otherwise it becomes the most expensive paperwork factory in British history. Farage is gambling that the public will be so pleased to see fewer foreign faces they will swallow the invoice. Sunak is calculating that he can borrow the gimmick, announce a crackdown, and let Labour inherit the queue when the courts explode. So what do we do? First, Conservative MPs who still believe in the rule of law must table an amendment to the forthcoming immigration bill that entrenches ILR in primary legislation. Second, every migrant who is eligible for citizenship, EU settled status, Commonwealth ancestry, spousal, whatever, should apply this year before the law changes. Third, constituency associations need to feel heat. Tell them you will not deliver leaflets for any candidate who toys with retroactive punishment. And fourth, support the free movement legal challenge already being prepared by the Immigration Law Practitioners Association. They will need crowdfunded pounds, not just retweets. Britain used to understand that a promise given in Parliament is a bond. When we told the Windrush generation they were citizens, we meant it. When we tore that up 50 years later, we paid compensation and apologised. The reform proposal is Windrush by algorithm. Abolish the paper trail, delete the database, and let silence do the deporting. If we let it pass, the next time the Treasury needs a cut, the target will not be migrants. It will be pensioners who once claimed housing benefit, or veterans who dipped into universal credit between tours. Once rights become conditional, everyone is on probation.